Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be a Q&A session where I'll be answering a bunch of questions that you all had submitted, and I'm actually really excited about it. I've never done anything like this before, so let's just go ahead and jump into it. A few people had asked a few personal questions, so I'll start out with a few questions about me. I am Kat. I do have a few favorite colors. Green is probably my favorite. It's always been one of my favorite colors, so it doesn't have anything to do with Izuku, for those of you who might be theorizing. If you'll notice in the comments or any of the things that I post on here, I usually throw a green heart attached, so it's kind of a giveaway for those of you who may have guessed, but yep, so that's my favorite color. As for my music preferences, people had asked about that as well. That was a pretty common question. I listen to just about everything, and I know a lot of people say that, but for me, it's really true. The only things that I kind of steer away from is modern country. I listen to just about everything else, though. So my dad was a drummer. Growing up, I listened to a lot of heavy metal and rock, and that was pretty common. And then as I got older, I branched out into more indie alternative, 90s alternative, grunge, things like that. So it just kind of expanded and blew up from there. One question that was more on the personal side that I was really excited to answer is, do you have any pets? And I do. My pride and joy is my cat, Storm. She is 4 years old this year, and she is adorable. She's a big talker, though, so you may hear her on occasion making guest appearances and cameos. You might hear her bell more than anything else, especially in older videos. If you've managed to catch that, then yeah, you spotted her. That's for sure. There's a few people who've asked and I have answered, yeah, that's my cat in the background. But if you haven't seen that yet, then yes, I do have a cat named Storm. So one question that was extremely popular that a lot of people wanted the answers to were, how did you get into reading fan fiction and how did that change into starting doing podfics? So little backstory, I have always been a huge reader, even since I was a kid, had tons of books as a kid, and just, I don't know, there was something about the escapism of it. Always loved reading. Even in high school, that was probably the last time I've genuinely been on Wattpad, but I had it on my phone when I was in high school, and I would be up till 3 in the morning reading when I really needed to go to sleep. That still happens today. But when I got into college, I started into Harry Potter fanfics. That was kind of what started my fan fiction journey. And fics like Manacled and Hermione fanfics is kind of where it started out, and then it just kind of spiraled from there. I got into some of my other fandoms like Merlin or Smallville, Supernatural, some of the other ones that I'm a part of as well, before I really got into anime. Anime was more something that I got into in college too. It started with Naruto and then it just just tumbled from there too. So I really kind of found myself in college. Um, I will say that for this fandom, it started not from watching the show or from reading the mangas. It started with the fic the way you used to do. It was a Bakudeku fic, and if you've read it, which a lot of people have, it's pretty popular in the fandom. Um, if you've read it, you'll know it's a very long, very slow burn, and I knew nothing of the characters, knew nothing about why Bakugo was the way he was, personality wise. That was a big shocker for me. And I just absolutely fell in love with the whole concept of quirks and everything else. So I got pulled into this fandom from that fic alone. Eventually, I convinced myself to sit down and watch the show. And I watched the show, I binged it, I fell in love with that as well. I became obsessed with it. Not really obsessed, but it became something that I was really passionate about and I really liked. I hadn't encountered a show kind of like that before. And needless to say, now I own all the mangas. I've got School Briefs, I've got the whole Vigilante series, everything. So you name it, it's over on that shelf. I I really like it a lot though, and I didn't anticipate, getting sucked in so quickly into a fandom like this, but it just became a huge part of my life. So I've been reading fan fiction in this community ever since, and it's been amazing. I absolutely love it. I got into listening to Podfics last year, and on July 1st, that's when I was at home. It was July 4th weekend, and I was desperately looking for a podfic of the essay writing competition. It was the first podfic I ended up doing on this channel. I was really upset because I couldn't find one. So I honestly, I was like, you know what? I'll just do it myself. I really wanted to listen to it and I didn't have a way to do it, and I was upset, and I wanted to listen to it so bad. I was in a cleaning mode. I stopped cleaning. I sat down. I was like, you know what? No, I'm just gonna read it. So I went and I podficked it, and I expected that to just be the end of it. I didn't think it would go anywhere from there. What I really didn't expect was for people to like it and for people to start subscribing to me and asking for more. I absolutely loved it. It was so much fun. I had a great time with it. I knew nothing of what I was doing. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to do voices or anything like that. But I just went with it, and it was a blast. I will say that if it wasn't for amazing support and really kind people on this channel, I probably wouldn't have kept going with it. But I will say the biggest turning point for me was, when I started to see people commenting early on about how, they suffered from ADHD, and listening to Podfics really helps them a lot because they struggle to sit down and focus on reading fics, or how they just didn't have time to sit down and read Podfics or read fan fiction like they used to. And Podfix is making that possible for them. So I really wanted the opportunity to help people enjoy fan fiction that maybe otherwise couldn't at the time. So when I saw those comments, I realized that it was something more than just having fun and spreading awareness to my favorite fics. It was more about making fan fiction more accessible to more people if I could. And to me, that's why I've really stuck with it this long, and why I plan to keep going with this. It means so much to be able to do this for other people. But I also do get to have a lot of fun with it too. It's something I'm passionate about. It's something I like. I never would have pictured myself as being able to do voicing for anyone, as far as stuff with My Hero. But I love it that much. I'm passionate about it, and it's become a huge part of my life now. So I can't imagine not doing this. So being able to help people while also doing that just makes it 10 times better. Now, a lot of you were asking questions about my favorite ships, my favorite characters, what characters I like to voice the most, things like that. A lot of different favorites. So I've made a couple lists, and I'm just going to kind of go through some of my favorite things as far as, relating to fan fiction or the show. So my top My Hero Academia ships. Now, let me just preface this by saying that I will read any ships. I do not discriminate when it comes to fan fiction, because for starters, I would not have a lot of the ship preferences that I have now if I was closed-minded about what I was reading. And so let me say also, you can recommend any fics that you want to recommend. I will at least look at them, and usually I read them. If you're commenting, let me just kind of sidebar here. If you're commenting on the videos themselves, I typically try, if I see it, I screenshot it and I save it on my phone, so that way I can go back and look at it, because it's really hard to filter through the comments all the time if I'm looking for fics. Now, I will say the easiest places to do it is in my Discord, here on any of the community page posts, which is my preference because it's one specific location I can go to and it stays there, and I can look at them whenever I'm trying to find recommendations and stuff. So that's really helpful. So if you're leaving them there, yay. And other places are fine too. You can, message me in Discord, that's fine. My Discord is in my bio, and it should be a permanent link. So if for some reason you're still struggling to access, let me know. Outside of that though, you can also comment on my AO3. And my AO3, I have mentioned it a few times on the community page, but it's Hurricane Cat 98. So if you are on any of my fics in there, the comments save into my inbox. So that's another nice place to do it too. So that's just, it's just nice to know where you guys can comment your recommendations. Any of those places are fine. It's not gonna make a difference. If you keep recommending it, I do save them when I see them in the comments on the videos. So those are fine too. I know some people don't want to track down other locations to drop recommendations, but just know I do save the ones that are in the comments as much as I can, and I am constantly looking through them. One of the first recommendations I ever got was for Spirit by Kaneki, and that one I just did here recently, but it was one of the first recommendations I got back when I had first started by one of my first subscribers, and I finally got a chance to coming around to recording that one. So if you're making recommendations and you don't see the fics that you're recommending popping up on here, there's a variety of reasons. For starters, I've got a huge list of fics that I'm working on. In addition to that, I've got a huge list of my TBRs. So my to be read fics are just insane. And in addition to that, authors may not have approved. So there's a variety of reasons why it may not be up, but it could just be in the works. So don't lose hope if you haven't seen a fic that you've recommended popping up just yet. That's why I like to post, give you guys a schedule of what fics I'm working on and what's coming down the line. That way you have an idea of maybe one that you recommended is. Emerald Prince was recommended back a while ago, and that's now on my list to do as well. So just keep that in mind. I do want to make sure that you all are seeing your recommended fics popping up as well. It just takes time to get through them all. Okay, so back to my top My Hero Academia ships. So let me just go through my list. My number one is, if you probably couldn't guess, Tododeku. Right below that, like just a smidgen below that, is Shindeku. And I can give you reasonings for that. I also really like Todo Shindeku, which is why there's a couple fics on this channel like Reformation and Data Stream that are poly ships that are Todo Shindeku. That's probably my favorite poly ship, is Todo Shindeku, but individual, just singular pairings, I really like Tododeku the most. Reasonings for that is I'm a big fan of trauma bonding fics. I'm a big fan of, those types of struggles. And there's a lot of canon material for the relationship, the strong friendship, at least, between Midoriya and Todoroki. So I think that looking at it from that perspective, there's a lot that people can work with. Shinso and Izuku, I think, is another really great ship, which is why it's my number two. But the difference for me between Tododeku and Shindeku is that Shindeku, there's not as much going on outside of the interaction at the sports festival and outside of the Class 1A and Class 1B exercises, where Shinso shows up and things like that they have any actual canon interactions. So because of that, Tododeku is just slightly above for me because it's more possible in my mind. But Shindeku is up there too. I love, those are my top two. So just keep that in mind. I adore those pairings. Eraser Mike's another one. In my mind, it's basically canon. I adore Eraser Mike. It pops up in a lot of fics. Even if Izuku doesn't have a pairing in a fic, a lot of times it'll be an Eraser Mike fic. Just because I love that for them. I really do. So back to some more ship pairings that I like. I am a fan of Bakudeku. I have done some Bakudeku on this channel. It's one that I started with in the fandom. It's how I got into My Hero Academia, so I have a soft spot for Bakudeku when it comes to that. I think they have a really unique characterization, the two of them, and their relationship in canon. I think Horikoshi does a nice job developing Bakugo's character very slowly. I like that. I like when characterization takes time because it means more in my mind than when it's rushed. And so that's why when I read Bakudeku fics, I really enjoy the ones where they're aged up, pro heroes, duos, or a team, and there's been adequate time in there for Bakugo to make changes. That kind of stuff I really enjoy. I also like soulmate AUs or completely different AUs where things change completely. Their past maybe never occurred the way it did in canon. I also really like fics where, maybe Izuku's in support, or things like that, like in Landscape After Cruelty. I think those are great too, but Bakugo really seeking redemption and having adequate time within a fic for him to seek proper redemption for those actions. A lot of times in fics where Bakugo redeems himself, usually they work to a point where it's friendship, not to the point where it's a relationship. That usually takes a lot more time. So personally, I love Bakudeku fics, but there's certain things that I'm kind of looking for, as opposed to Tododeku. I think just works in my mind. So I do like Bakudeku, and I have more planned for this channel, so keep that in mind. And then I also like Kiribaku and Shin Kami a lot. I think those are cute too, and Momojiro, but they tend to be more background. There are fics I've read where they're the centric focus, but I tend to do more Izuku focused fics. Just, it's a personal preference, but I'll read more outside of that too. Now, what other ship pairings do I like? Dobby Hawks is a really good one. I like them a lot. I think that for starters, their ship name being Hot Wings is awesome. I think that's great. I haven't read a ton of fics where they're the central focus. I tend to read more fics where their background relationship is a part of things, but I like fics where Hawks confronts trauma and things that he dealt with when it comes to the commission, and Dobby confronts things with Endeavor and they help each other through it, along with a combined, found family with the League of Villains. Those types of fics I think are really great. I also have some rare pair ships that I really like. My favorite one is Monodeku. I really like Monoma and Izuku, and I'm not going to apologize for that. I think for some reason Monoma and Izuku as a pairing I never would have pictured, but they actually really work well. I think that Monoma is like another example of a Bakugo type personality, just the 1B version. But I think that because they don't have that shared past and history, it gives more potential there. So Monoma and Izuku can act as opposites that can bring out the best in each other and challenge each other in a certain way. And I stumbled across it one day and I just fell down a rabbit hole, and there's not enough fics on it. So if there's any of you that are writers out there, please help. And then the other one that I would say is a rare pair that I actually kind of enjoy a lot is aged up Shigedeku fics, or time travel AUs, whatever you have to do to make it work. But aged up Shigedeku fics I think are really cool, like post-war fics, where they come to a realization that they're two sides of the same coin. Reconcile is a good example of that, but it's not actually a pairing. It's just it's the first fic I could think of. It kind of shows that they're coming to an understanding. But I really like those types of fics a lot. I think they're really great personally. Another thing that was kind of unexpected that I really like, that I never thought of before until I started reading some more Shigedeku fics, was the thought of All for One and One for All having that connection, and the two of them having almost like a soulmate type connection thing. So I think there's a lot of potential with Shigedeku fics that doesn't get explored enough. There's some really great fics out there, but that kind of concludes my favorite ships. Now again, I'll read just about any ship, so don't feel like you can only send recommendations for those. I'll read any. Those are just my personal preferences based on what I read the most. My favorite My Hero Academia characters kind of falls under the same thing. I can list them off for you all. It's Izuku, Todoroki, Aizawa, Shinso, Shigaraki, Dabi, Hawks, Monoma, Mei, and Present Mike. And they tend to be, that's why my pairings are like that, is because those are my favorite characters. I don't have one specific favorite character. I think Izuku's a great main character. I think that Horikoshi does an amazing development of Izuku, but I don't have a specific main character or specific one character that I love more than any. I think they all have just, I don't know, they're all great. I love this show. The only one I just despise is Mineta. So outside of that though, I like all the characters. But yeah, that list that I gave you is probably some of my favorites. And if you couldn't guess that I like Present Mike by now from the name of this entire channel and just the fact that I call everyone listeners, then there's that. So now, am I on other platforms? Yes, I am. So Hurricane Cat 98, which was the original name of this channel, which because it literally was just what I used on a lot of my social media accounts, is my TikTok account name, and it's also the name of where I have my AO3 account as well. Those are the same. So if you search Hurricane Cat 98, you'll find both of those. On TikTok, all I do is just post recommendations for the fics that I'm actually podficking at the time, both to have people go check it out on AO3 and then also here. And on AO3, like I said, I've just got that one fic that I'm doing, but it's also where I post works inspired by for all the podfics that I'm doing here. So you can check out either of those if it interests you. I also have a Discord, as I've mentioned, and it is linked in my bio. So in my Discord, it's set up to be just a relaxed environment. So keep that in mind. It's not a crazy like structured thing. It's just meant to be there if you wanted to recommend things, if you wanted to chat about anything in particular, if you wanted to share art that you've done, fan art, things like that. It's very relaxed. So I don't have crazy rules in place on my Discord, but I do preface that it's supposed to be a comfortable place for everybody. So just being kind. As long as you're kind, you're fine. Just be a nice person. That's all I ask. As far as do I have a Patreon or Coffee? I do have a Coffee set up, and that's actually linked in my bio as well. It's just not something I talk about, but a few people had asked, and a while back someone had asked me to set one up, so I did. But yeah, that's all I have set up for that. Are you willing to share fics you enjoy as recommendations? Yeah, I think that would be great. If there's fix that I think people would enjoy, I don't mind making recommendation videos. I think that would be kind of fun outside of just what I'm podficking here on this channel. That could be cool. So if that's something that interests you all, just let me know in the comments below, please. What is your podfic setup? Believe it or not, I rotate my podficking being done at my PC and my desk and on my phone. It's about 50-50. So if you ask me about mic quality, honestly, I change what I record on a lot. So I think it really just comes down to picking what works best for you personally and testing out different ones if you're able to. If you're somebody that's looking to go into podficking, it's more dependent on, I think it more depends on editing and things like that too. But I usually can't tell the difference from when I podfic on my phone versus when I podfic at my PC. So it really depends. The mic setup that I have for my PC, I got off of Amazon, I got off of Amazon for like $40. So you can find some decent setups without it having to be something that breaks the bank. Try it out first and play around with a couple different options if you have a few different devices to use, and just see what works best for you, because everybody's voice is different. So what may work well for me may not work well for you all. And that's just, I don't want to tell you one thing when it may not be the best option, and I'm not an expert in this, so I don't want to lie either. So I'll just be honest and say I think it really does depend on your personal voice. Some people are going to be breathier than others. Some people are going to talk closer to mics than others. It really will depend on a lot of factors. I use CapCut to edit and create the videos that I do. I just add in my recorded voice, and then I just upload that into YouTube and do checks. So that's a lot of what my process kind of entails. And the nice thing about CapCut is I can work on my PC or my phone. If I'm traveling or things like that, I can work in different locations, which is nice. So I can do this from another area. I had been uploading fics while I was on a cruise a few months back, so it's something I like to be able to do it wherever I go. How long does it take you to record a video? I'd say, so it varies. I'd say because I tend to fix errors on the go while I record, and I pause to listen back a good bit, it probably takes me double the length of a video to complete a podfic recording. So I'd say like a 20-minute video might take me like 40. But it really depends. There are some days where it takes me longer because I'm stumbling over words more and I'm making more mistakes. And there's other days where I just can flow through it a lot easier without messing up. But I like to listen back a lot, so that takes up a good bit of time. If you're not somebody that's going to do that as often, it wouldn't take as long. How do you keep up with your upload schedule? This I got asked a lot, even just in the comments of regular videos. So to me, this is for me, this is a form of self-care. It's really enjoyable. I like doing this. It's not taxing to me. It's not stressful. It's fun and enjoyable. I get to immerse myself in fics and when I podfic them, and I get to spend time reading fics. So that's really enjoyable, and it's something that I love. It's really not something that feels strenuous at all. To compensate for days when I'm really busy, I usually stay a day ahead on my podfics when I can. Or I use the weekend days sometimes, and I try to, build up a couple extra podfics so that way I'm not as pressed to try to do more during the week. But I take breaks when I need to. I did that during the holidays. If you all were subscribed and watching videos over the holidays, then you'd notice that there were some days where I was only putting 2, maybe 3 up, or less than that. There's some days I think I maybe only put 1 up. So I take time for myself, and I prioritize self-care a lot. But this is a form of relaxation for me. So unless I'm extremely busy with other things, I usually have time to get this stuff done. So that's that. Do you take care of yourself? This was one that people really wanted me to answer. Yes, I do. Don't think that just because I have a crazy upload schedule, at least it feels that way, I'm not taking care of myself, because I do. I prioritize self-care a lot. I'm somebody that really likes to focus on making sure that, health and wellness and mental health is all taken care of. So it's important to me to take time to make tea and write and read and, just independent books that aren't maybe things that I'm doing for this. Exploring my other hobbies, writing, listening to music, those types of things. And I just got a crochet set, so I'm excited to learn how to do that. But for me, this is enjoyable. Put it in this perspective. If I wasn't reading these to you, I would still be reading. The only difference is I just read it aloud. And I enjoy it that way. I get to immerse myself in a different way by reading it aloud. So it's nice. I really do enjoy it. Another really big question that I wanted to spend some time on that a lot of people asked was, what are your recommendations for people looking to start making podfics? So I've dropped a couple of things and stuff that I suggest, or talked about some of the things that I do here on this channel, but I would start by reading a lot of fics. Honestly, that's the first thing I can tell you. That's probably the easiest way to start. Read a lot of fics, build a collection of the one you love. Start there. That's the easiest thing to start with. If you don't have an account on AO3, get one. It takes a little bit of time. You have to request an account, set one up. I would recommend it if you haven't explored AO3 for fan fiction. I would say that it's a great platform to use. It's also really great to credit, and I'll get into more of that. Requesting permissions from authors is important, and waiting for a response before you start recording. You don't want to get started on it and then have to cancel it or wait for something else. So it's important to make sure you request those permissions. I like AO3 because I can just drop a comment at the bottom of the fic and wait for a response back from the author, and then I save it in my inbox. One really big thing is properly crediting your authors. You cannot credit too much. Credit, credit, credit. If you are confused about things, you can look at examples that I've done or other podfickers have done as well. But when you credit, I would suggest linking it in the description or bio of the videos itself, listing the author's name on the video and in the description, and creating a works inspired by at the very least in AO3 as well. Some of the earlier fics I did, I was going based off of what author preferences were, but I think going forward since a few months back, any fics that I've done since then, unless it was a part of a series that I had already started, I've made sure there's a works inspired by on them as well, even if authors don't ask for it, because it just takes it another step further. You know, authors are going to come to you with specific requests for certain things. A lot of times I've had authors ask to have their name in the background. I've had authors ask to make sure there's a link in the description of the video. So those types of things are pretty common for asks from authors when it comes to crediting. And in my mind, it's better to just do it anyway. Just credit those authors. Another thing I'll say is only podfic fics that you truly enjoy, because that's going to help with preventing burnout, especially if you're reading a long fic. You're going to be more likely to finish it if it's one you enjoy. Don't be afraid to just post. Don't. Give it a shot. Don't be upset if you make mistakes. It's going to happen. It really is a learning process. It's going to take time. Make small adjustments as you go, and that's the whole point of it. And have fun. Honestly, have fun with it. If you can't have fun with it and you can't enjoy it, then it may not be for you, and that's okay. But if you find yourself recording a lot and you really get into the swing of things, I'll say that hot tea and honey is a lifesaver. If you all are still looking for more advice as far as podfics go and starting up a podfic channel, I think it's important to just reference other podfickers as well. I'm not the only one that does this. There's amazing people out there that are doing podfics. That's not just me. There's some incredible people who've been doing it a lot longer than I have. I've only been doing this since July, so the advice I can offer is stuff that I've learned so far. I'm sure there's tons more that I have to learn still. But I'd be happy to do some more videos down the line of more advice, and I'd also be happy to do more Q&As down the line too to answer more of your questions, because I know I didn't get to all of them, but I tried to pick the ones that I thought people really wanted to hear the most. The last question I'll answer is, if you had to rate your community out of 10 based on how kind they've been, how would you rate them? And it's infinite, 1,000,000 out of 10, infinite, whatever you want to say, definitely more than 10, because if it wasn't for you all, I can say this with 100% honesty, I would not be here today doing this still. I wouldn't be doing this channel if it wasn't for your kind words and encouragements. So if you're really excited about this channel and you're happy that I'm doing this, thank yourselves too, because without you, I wouldn't be doing this still. With that, I think I'll wrap things up, but I'm really excited to have gotten the chance to do this. So thank you all for those of you who submitted questions. It really means a lot that you all took the time to ask. And those of you who've subscribed, it really means a lot to see that. I'm happy to still be doing this, and I don't plan to stop anytime soon. So keep giving me your recommendations for fics. If you're an author and you want to request that I podfic your fic, hit me up on AO3. That's the best place to do it, and I'll answer more of your questions in the future. Thank you all so much for listening.